Hello and welcome for another video on TCGplayer.com. My name is Steve Rubin. This week we're going to go at it with Elves in Modern. This is a deck that we saw top 8 Grand Prix Hartford, with the kind of less explosive but more consistent without Court of Calling, rather, with the Shaman of the Pack lead the Stampede package. I also saw a deck this week on Magic Online go 5-0 that was playing the same deck, except it also had Bloodbraid Elf, which I think is an awesome addition because it just makes this deck so, well, you have a lot of 1-drops to cascade into that are bad. You have a lot of heavy hitter cards that are really good alongside the Bloodbraid Elf, and I think that it gives this deck a lot of staying power and it makes it a really consistent deck. You know, it is pretty explosive, but it also has a lot of overpowering card advantage engines like Lead the Stampede and Bloodbraid Elf and Collected Company. So let's go ahead and get into the deck tech. So our mana base is pretty straightforward, very similar to the humans mana base, where we have Unclaimed Territory and Cavern of Souls. That gives us color for pretty much all of our creatures. We have 3 forests, 2 palaces, some shocklands to get with 4 fetch lands. Pretty straightforward. We have 4 Elvish Mystics and 4 Llanowar Elves. Those are 1 mana guys, and to go along with them we have Heritage Druid and Nettle Sentinel, which are both kind of mana produce combo off to, like, pretty much together they combo to make a lot of mana, and the Nettle Sentinel is just essentially not a great card because it doesn't do anything on its own, but in conjunction with Heritage Druid, Dwynen's Elite, or any of your Lord or Shaman of the Pack type effects, it's pretty strong, as it's kind of like a 1 mana 3/3. For Dwynen's Elite, this is kind of the card that we saw make Elves go from a deck that didn't really exist in Modern to when Magic Origins was printed. Dwynen's Elite actually gave you that Dwynen's Elite Heritage Druid, like turn 2 Elvish Archdruid nonsense draws that we're so apt to see now, which lead to the turn 3 kills. That's pretty much why we have the Dwynen's Elite and what kind of holds the glue that holds this deck together to lead to the Stampede. This is kind of not new technology in Elves, but there's 2 different ways to play Elves. One is with Court of Calling, which makes your deck a little bit more combo-y, but a little bit less resilient. The other way is with Lead the Stampede, and generally because this gives you a lot of creatures, you to flood the board with, you play it in conjunction with Shaman of the Pack, Shaman of the Pack, which is 3/2 for 3 that was also, I believe, printed in Origins. Funny enough, which part of that green-black elf draft archetype in that set, which kind of put elves into this position where we can go really wide and burn them out. Of course, we have Archdruid. We have 1 Elvish Champion, which is kind of just in there. The Forest Walk is nice, but sometimes you just need more Lord effects because you're going really wide, and this just makes your companies a little bit better. And if you randomly play against a deck like Jund, or especially Boggles, when they have you can actually beat a giant Daybreak Coronet with Forest Walk. 2 Azuris, kind of, you know, another reason that this elf deck can work the way it works, because once you get a ton of mana with your Archdruid, you kind of go off of Azuri. Some of these decks, the other versions of these decks are Nykthos type decks, which try to go like super big with Azuri. We're not really trying to do that here. 4 Shaman of the Pack. Then we have 4 Collected Company, just one of the I guess not really the best card in Modern, but it was a really good card in Standard, and still a pretty good card in Modern. It gives you the ability to play around sweepers and have really explosive draws. Bloodbraid Elf, now unbanned, I think, took Jund from being a deck that wasn't a deck at all to, like, now maybe not a tier 1 deck, but a tier 2 deck, and perhaps in an actual elf synergy deck, this can be really good. Onto the sideboard, we have 3 Thoughtseize. These are pretty much for combo. We don't want to dilute our deck, so we're not boarding this in against Control, for instance, I would imagine. But pretty much for combo decks. 2 Dismembers. This helps us beat Hollow One, which is really popular right now, and is pretty good against humans. Extra Lead the Stampede. This just gives us some additional way of combating control decks. Elvish Champion, like I said, this is really good against Boggles, and it's also good against pretty much any deck with forests. Reclamation Sage, this is to help us against artifacts. This gives us an out to cards like Carcon Ironworks. It can kill Ensnaring Bridge, which is really important. It's also very good against Boggles and Affinity. 2 Chokes, this helps us against blue decks, obviously. We kind of have the funny cards printed in 1995 with Elvish Champion and Choke in our sideboard. Oh, if you're playing against Forest, you have Elvish Champion. If you play against Islands, you have Choke. 2 Relics is for Graveyard, and Fracturing Gust is actually, it's a little awkward because we have these colorless lands, but I think it's still worth it because if you ever get a Fracturing Gust off against a deck like Lantern Control, Affinity, or Boggles, it's just game over. So that's the deck, and let's go ahead and get into the round one.